make you qualified enough? I mean, some would say you may become Prime Minister simply because of your last name, not because you're qualified to lead the country.
Yingluck reaffirmed that she's not controlled by her brother Thaksin Shinawat. The Pheu Thai party has shut its doors on the rival Phumjai Thai party, ruling out speculation about the two sharing the same coalition bandwagon. A practical national reconciliation plan and an anti-corruption measures should be implemented by the new government, as that would give a big boost to the economy. Update the news around the world with Patsurang Desha Puttarangsi and Ong Anan Namatayakun in Asean Newsroom.
Good morning and welcome to Asean Newsroom. Today is Friday, June the 3rd of 2011. You're with me, Ong Anan Amatayakun.
And I'm Patsurang Desha Puttarangsi.
Kun Patsurang, today is June 3rd.
Yes.
We're exactly 1 month away from the general election in Thailand.
Yes, and the election campaign is getting hotter.
So today we are following the election countdown, starting off with the Pheu Thai party.
Interestingly, Yingluck said that she's not controlled by her brother Thaksin Shinawat. That she was not controlled by her brother Thaksin Shinawat. She said that since she was young, she was taught how to run business and management by her brother. With the question of her qualification to be a Prime Minister of Thailand, Yingluck replied that her supporters would give her a chance and her experience on handling the 20 million customers for 5 to 6 years in a big corporate would help her survive the position.
Does that make you qualified enough? I mean, some would say you may become Prime Minister simply because of your last name, not because you're qualified to lead the country.
I believe that I believe that people will give me a chance, and the experience for me that I have to handle the customer more than 20 million customer. So I believe that for 5 or 6 years. So I think from my experience, I think people will see and accept that.
She also said that so far Thailand had high debt, so it was needed to earn new sources of revenue, and she would bring experiences from her business part to help the country.
Thai vote may spur inflation forcing higher rates as taxonomic returns. The Bloomberg reports that Thailand's election may force the central bank to add to 7 interest rate increases in the past year, as promises of higher wages and handouts by politicians threaten to spur inflation. Caretaker Prime Minister Apisit Wechashiwa has pledged to raise the minimum wage by 25%, give cash to the elderly, and guarantee farmers income to appeal to voters loyal to exiled former Premier Thaksin Shinawat. The opposition Pheu Thai party, led by Thaksin's sister, has promised tablet PCs, rice price guarantee schemes, high-speed trains, dams, and a new city. The policies promoted by both the government and opposition would put the onus on the Bank of Thailand to contain inflation that's accelerated to a 32-month high. Governor Prasan Trairat Warakul raised the benchmark rate to 3% yesterday, and the bank said it stands ready to take necessary action against inflationary pressures. Welian Wiranto, a Singapore-based economist at HSBC Holdings, said with the economy on the strong footing over the background of high commodity prices, he had already inflation concerns for Thailand, and he also said that the ramp up in the government's spending overall would not help the situation. Thailand's benchmark stock index has risen 2.6% this year, outperforming those in Hong Kong, Japan, Shanghai, Taiwan, Singapore, and Malaysia, as companies including meat producers Charoen Pokapan Food or CP benefited from economic growth. The one-year onshore interest rate swap, the fixed cost needed to receive a floating payment, added 6 basis points to 3.22% after yesterday's rate increased. Borrowing costs remain low and supportive of economic growth, while the pace of rate increases is still appropriate, Bank of Thailand Assistant Governor Phaiboon Kittisikkangwan said yesterday. The central bank is concerned that policies that focus on the spending in the election will affect inflation and growth. While Prasan said it's a good thing to help low-income earners, but they needed to increase productivity at the same time and needed to do both. If they only raise the wage, it will hurt our competitiveness.
Head of the Pheu Thai Party's economic team has pledged to cut the corporate income tax rate from the current 30% to 23% if the party won the 3rd July election. Meanwhile, caretaker Finance Minister Kon Jatikawanit of the Democrat Party said his party would boost the Thai capital market by linking it with other stock exchanges in ASEAN countries. Speaking at a seminar on the role of capital markets in boosting Thailand's competitiveness, head of Pheu Thai's economic team Olan Chaipravat said his party's tax cut is aimed at boosting the competitiveness of Thai companies and industries. In the following year, the corporate income tax will be further lowered to 20% so that the tax rate in Thailand is closer to those of Singapore and Hong Kong, according to Olan. At the same seminar held by Federation of Thai Capital Market Organizations, Kon said that the Democrat Party would promote the framework of Asian asset class as a means to boost the Thai capital market.
Well, we've actually already been working on developing the capital markets together with the private sector and all the regulators involved through the first ever capital market development plan, which passed through our government just under 2 years ago.
Yes.
And we've been working basically to develop a capital market so that the quality of the products in the market improves to the extent whereby investors are more attracted towards investing in the market. The principal aim of capital markets is really to allow corporations, small and large, to be able to raise financing in as low a cost as possible. And we've been making some headway in that. The index of the capital market, stock market, of course, has been rising. There's been a greater number of the general public as investors participating in both the equity and the debt capital markets. These are projects that we will have to continue to work on if we were to return as government.
Yeah. And what is your plan to link the Thai capital market with other markets in ASEAN countries?
I think that's an important challenge.
Yes.
And I think there are two ways of looking at that. The one is to enable Thai investors to be able to invest in other ASEAN exchanges. But more importantly is to create an ASEAN asset class.
Yes.
Frankly speaking, individual ASEAN stock markets, even Thailand, remain small in the eye of global investors. And in order to make the market more attractive to global investors, which implies higher prices for companies who have listed their shares in these markets, it's important to consolidate the ASEAN markets to create scale. Once you have scale, you have liquidity. Once you have liquidity, you have better prices. And that means lower cost of funding for companies across ASEAN. So I think creating an ASEAN asset class is an important challenge.